on 2.5. Do you want to do? We should do something. Somebody should say, "I think we found out who Pupmos is. It's," and then we kick it off, or maybe. Yeah, like that.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Game of Nodes, the weekly podcast from On the Cosmos from independent validators, where every single episode we're looking for more and more extreme ways to troll other people with how we open the show. Sorry, Usurper, you just got.
That was awesome.
So thanks for joining us. Also, thanks to the number of people that we got quite a lot of feedback as well for episode 2.5, which we kind of did off the hoof on as a result of the feedback we got from episode 2. So also lots of thank yous to everybody that's been checking these out, giving us feedback, giving us comments, and also suggesting topics. We're going to probably talk about a couple of things that have been thrown our way a little bit further down the show. Some stuff around smart contracts and should I be signing these things? TLDR. Do your own research. But first, we're going to do our regular session. Noel, do you want to take over here?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start. So the regular question to start out each week is the dumbest thing you've seen in crypto this week. And while this might not be the dumbest thing I've ever seen, it was this week, and that was the triple launch, or the triple fail to launch in Craft, unfortunately, this week. Resulted in trying the same Genesis at different times, 3 times, which resulted in, well, initially we did get it booted on the first Genesis, but then it all of the vote power was with one validator, which didn't appear to work, and everyone got jailed, and then we shut that down and tried again. But, you know, without everybody on board at another time, that was very short after the announcement and not enough vote. And so that went on a few days, and then tried another one, which resulted in not enough vote, and failed to launch new Genesis, this time with another network ID. So, you know, that's a step forward. So I guess moving around the room then, so maybe Schultzy, to go completely not in order of the pictures on the screen.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Cosmos Lend airdrop that's happening right now. They put out a tweet where they want validators to basically market for them, and they're going to do, I want to say they're going to airdrop to 7 validators, only 7, the 7 with the best marketing scheme. And I have pretty strong opinions about, you know, people giving delegations to validators over an airdrop. Now I say that, but I say that, you know, I get some of the craft bonus for my Atom validator. So I guess I don't know, talking crap to myself, but I'm not a huge fan of that. I think it's dumb. That's what I've got for the week.
So Usurper, you got anything for us this week?
I don't think so. Just to defend the craft team, maybe not defending, but the challenges of testnets have been getting more and more. I think they've been getting worse over time, like in this last few months, it seems. So I think the groups are too big and they want diversity in validators, which I totally agree with, right? You want to be able to bring people in, especially folks who are not running this professionally and just want to give them the opportunity to run nodes. That's how I got in, right? So I totally get it. But when you have 60 or 70 or 120 validators and they're global and we kind of pick a time and then we make a mistake and then we have a last minute get change on a whatever it is, right? We're going to change that last minute. We're going to change the network ID or something similar to that. It's difficult. So I think this last one, I mean, I think they started with this last go around, which I thought was the right way to do it, but they started with they had Gentex and they had all the kind of coins from the original Gentex that they did. And then they started with 5 validators to say, okay, we'll get it going. And once it's going, then we'll let people do a create and bring them in. And then one of the 5 disappeared. And so they're right back to where they started, where they didn't have enough. So it was an A for effort on that, though. But I think that I think we've seen a lot of challenges with just getting testnets off the ground, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention mainnets, not calling out anybody in particular, but.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not hacking on craft at all, but yeah. I think probably it's important if you have a failed to launch, then it's important to iterate the chain ID, because you get so many old nodes trying to connect, everything gets confused, and then it just doesn't work. So I think that's a good lesson for anyone trying to run a testnet. If you get a fail to launch, just iterate the ID and recollect Gentex. If you're going to use 5 people and they're there, just get a Gentex and pull them in and start a new network ID.
Yeah.
Jabby, did you want to talk to us, mate, or did you want to? You're driving.
No, I got it. So the dumbest thing that I saw in crypto is actually a historical relic. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
All right,
yeah.
So to make a long story short, in pre-proto-buff JSON days, there was a certain set of messages that you could send to Cosmos chains to do different actions. And then once Protobuf was introduced, some of those messages got renamed. And so my team and I spent, I don't know, at least 48 hours trying to debug something. And it turns out that the Protobuf form of message delegator withdraw reward is message delegator withdraw reward, but the amino JSON is message delegation withdraw reward. And so I had been encoding it wrong, and we found out that there was this delta. So, if you're going to do backwards compatibility or something like that,
you need to go back and check the messages.
Yeah, I guess it was between V03.39 and 0.40, but that was a fun one. That was fun.
Well, they say assumption's the mother of all fuck-ups, right? Yeah. So we're kind of losing Gabby a little bit there. I'm not 100% sure where the hell he is or what the hell he's doing, but he's definitely going out of his way to be with us today. We've had no explanation from where he is or what he's doing. He just showed up in a car on the phone with someone else in the car now. And
I'm just in a van. It's a large passenger van. I'm giving out free candy. It's totally normal.
Oh my god.
I mean, yeah, there's another nondescript person in the vehicle. It's okay.
That's Pumos.
Yeah, Pumos. Oh, g'day. How you going? Presumably,
There was me all worried before this show aired that there was some. I'm at my parents' place and there was some photos of people in my wider family behind me, and I was like, I can't dox these people. And Jabby's just in the car with his family, and Null's obviously pointing to the family cow.
Picture of my family.
Not the car. It's the
as
mega
is tradition in Australia, of course. For those of you listening on podcast players, Null is pointing at a picture of a cow that is behind him. And also Jabby has somebody in the car with him. Oh, and Jabby is in a car. That's probably also not obvious if you're not watching the YouTube stream. So,
hang on. So we still haven't finished going around the room, and I guess now's a good time to introduce. Our guest this week, which is Ghost from Wispernode. Tried to join last week, but had some issues with the hardware for the stream, so joining us this week instead. And actually it's perfect because now we have 6, because Jack's unable to join us this week. But Ghost, mate, did you have something a little bit crazy, a little bit stupid you saw in the Cosmos this week? Validator?
Yeah, definitely. Cerberus proposal number 2. Some dude just straight up asking, like, we had just, and when I say we, I mean Chill Validation and we were working on proposal 1. It was my first proposal ever. I don't know about his. We pushed it live, and literally an hour and a half later, someone pushes proposal 2 live. Like, hey, I am Cute Mouse. Give me money. Ha ha ha. Something to that effect. And that was prop 2, like straight up hour and a half later. And I was just like, awesome way to start the chain, guys.
Decentralization, man.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the total cost to make a Cerberus, prop at the moment is probably what, like $2?
It's 150,000 Cerberus, which comes out to like $30, $40. Yeah, and unfortunately, the team hadn't had their native wallet finished yet. So they told everyone to go to the Bitsong wallet, which allows you to make text proposals right through it. So someone figured that out really quick, and there you go.
Here we
text
go.
Proposal.
There you go.
So, you know,
Time for
and we just doxed that fact as well. So at least the 10 people or something watching this live right now can immediately go.
well, there you go.
There you go.
Don't do it.
Anybody can create a proposal.
Maybe
he got
someone can
burned.
create a proposal to increase the amount required to make a proposal.
That's the hope.
Yep.
He did get no with veto though, so
Yeah, well, that's what it's there for, to lose your $30.
That's right.
Yep.
It's a huge risk.
So I guess I wouldn't mind circling back around to what Schultze started talking about with just briefly, like the Cosland.
Can I go with the dumbest thing I've seen this week?
Oh, did I miss you? Yeah, shit. We did actually miss you.
It's fine, but this is actually, it's not quite from this week, but, and I don't mean to just stick the boot in, or what is it you say, Noel? Shovel? No. What's the slang that you use? No, for sticking it into somebody, for giving them a kicking.
Oh shit, I don't know. Twist the knife.
No, it was some shoveling
shit,
raking.
Right.
I don't know. Whatever.
Drag it.
Anyway, it's lost the mystery of time. Anyway, so obviously found out about this a little while ago, and I thought it was a joke that the next Cosmoverse Cosmverse conference is going to be in Colombia.
Oh.
And I kind of just sort of ignored that and was like, that can't be real. And then no, it really is true, and it was 100% confirmed to me this week. And I was like, okay, no disrespect to the team, Cosmoverse in Lisbon was amazing. It was a really good time. Met some incredible people, had a great time. Would totally love to go to another one, but Jesus Christ, I'm not going to Colombia with a target painted on my back. So that is the most literally.
How do you really feel about Colombia?
I think I literally spit took my tea when somebody was like, no, legit, that is where it is. I was like, cool. As I said to them, I would quite happily anonymously go backpacking there. Not a problem. It probably is a really, really good time. I've been backpacking in South Central America before, but I wouldn't go to a big room advertised as this big room will be full of crypto nerds who may or may not 100% understand what a big target they are. You know?
Someone had said you're actually probably wanted there. Have you been backpacking there before, the Fray?
I'm not wanted in any jurisdiction that I know of, but a friend of mine got had to get smuggled across the border to Panama, I think from Costa Rica once, because of it's too complicated to even explain why. It was basically a misunderstanding, but they did have to get smuggled across the border. And somebody I know got thrown out of Borneo, as in escorted to the border and just booted Homer Simpson style into the adjacent country.
Wow.
Neither of those things were me. I just want to clarify, neither of those were me. They were people I know.
But Alex,
asking for a friend.
Alex, you're wanted in this jurisdiction.
Yeah, man, you're wanted. We want you.
You're
wanted
you.
right here.
That's kind of wholesome. I like that. So
this
sorry.
is
Okay,
holistically wholesome show.
It's a holistically wholesome show. Speaking of holistically wholesome, should we loop back to? You wanted to loop back to Schultze's point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think Schultze's point is quite relevant at the moment, and I guess it's worth talking about. And I guess we're all guilty. Not actually, we're not all guilty, but some of us here are guilty of being on the train of delegations for airdrops. I'm guilty, King drop. But I knocked that on the head shortly after actually announcing that, and just took a snapshot because I realized how damaging it is to other validators. So Schultze briefly touched on Craft, but Craft is a little bit different in that, yes, there are bonuses for some validators, but they are also doing an airdrop to the vast majority of people in any case, and the bonus isn't that huge. So think yeah. So I'm involved in that, and I think Schultz is involved with that. And Rhino, are you? I'm not sure if
No.
you and Jabby are.
Not
I know
yet.
the
There's
Fray
always next
doesn't
week.
deal in nefarious shit like that, except for dealing in nefarious things like that.
Yeah, and I want to make the point that I don't think that Cosmos Lend, I think it's going to be a great product. I hope it's going to be a great product. And I don't think that them only airdropping to 7 validators will like damn the project. It's just a direction that I don't see being a positive direction for the ecosystem to go. It starts with airdrops of tokens, and then it goes to like NFTs, which we're starting to see more and more. Unity Chaos has them saying that they are giving NFT airdrops. What's going to be after that? I don't know. But as we're seeing, it's always escalating, and to then escalate to only 7 validators, that to me is just it's not the way to go.
Yeah, I don't fully understand why they've done that. It doesn't really make any sense to me. If you want to bootstrap a project, you want to get it out to as many people as you can, and I don't see the sense for their project in selecting 7 validators, whether it's to have them all fighting over Twitter for bloody, recognition of the project, so they can be one of the 7 validators. But I tweeted yesterday, like, how do I get involved with the project? And then like saw what you had to do, and now I'm not going to get involved with it. So sorry to anyone delegators, but it's just it's going in a bad direction, and we don't want to encourage it. So
Yeah. So I mean, also I guess like I got a bit of indirect shade there because obviously like with the name service we are actually okay. I need to choose my words a tiny bit carefully here because there is a team that are going to do an airdrop for users of that service, but also they're I obviously don't want to give away the exact criteria that mean eligibility or whatever, like, but I will say that like the way that a lot of the early doors stuff was done with like validators just dropping to their delegators and stuff, like definitely influenced us in terms of thinking about like, well, what behavior are we incentivizing here? And something, I mean, it's something that we publicly said a couple of times as well around it, was that we don't want to incentivize people to just buy a load of names,
right? Because
that's also just filling up a namespace from and preventing people who will come along later and actually want a name to build a project on top of, or use for some other thing that we haven't thought of. So that's kind of like an anti-pattern. And so, we sort of like, well, the eligibility criteria are going to be like, hopefully harder to game. It's not going to be just a validator. It's going to be more general. If there is any wider drop than just to users, and, you probably shouldn't just buy a load of names. That probably is not a thing you should do. And yet, like, some people, and it's cool, if they want to do that, that's fine. We're not telling people how to spend their money. And if they like the project or if it gives them a buzz, that's cool. But, designing an airdrop is really hard, is basically what I learned from that. And if we've learned anything from Prop 16, it's that, it's like even harder than you could possibly imagine, right?
What if I bought a bunch of names across 50 wallets and then later combine them under one wallet? Would that be
completely acceptable?
Well,
too soon? Or
I was talking to Shane about this the other day because this is how much time has flown. This must have actually been more like 14 days ago. It's just that it feels like yesterday to me because I haven't slept in like 14 days, as my crazy eyes will probably tell you. But I was kind of trying to catch Shane from Stargaze up on the drama, and he was like, "Oh, well, there's ways, you kind of do want to restrict, something." And I was like, "Shane, I'm going to just level with you right now. I have breached the token limit on some of your NFT projects by switching projects. Burn me at the stake." So yeah, I think most people here have done the same thing. Have bought stars using multiple wallets, right?
No.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I haven't.
Not
I
a
don't know.
clue.
Are there airdrops for them? I just bought pictures that I liked.
Yeah. Has anybody?
Oh, sorry, because there was limit.
We all aped into the Stargaze Genesis NFTs, didn't we? But has anybody?
But like I just bought as many as I could with my wallet.
IBC. I haven't caught any of the follow-up ones. I've been huge in IBC friends.
I missed IBC friends. Send me one. I'll send you like.
I've got a number 6 right now. I ended up trading, like, I used part of my airdrop bought a couple really low rank ones, or like high rank junk ones, whatever, and just started hustling my way up. And now I have like a rank 6, a rank 200, and something else. So, and then they're coming out with their next wave, so they're going to do 5,000 more, and I think end of April, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. So there's 5,000 more coming, but that's a cool one.
Nice.
Sorry, we might be having some audio issues here. Someone's saying that they can't hear us.
You did hear that.
Anyway.
I saw that.
Yeah, the only person I can't hear properly is Usurper, so man, hit your loud
Really?
button. Yeah, like when you put your mouth right up to it, I can when you're eating it, but still a little bit quiet, man.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess, yeah, I mean, it's not just people doing that one thing either. Like, there's a lot of that type of practice across at the moment, and I get it. Like, people are trying to attract delegations to their validators, but I guess what kind of gets lost during all of this is that maybe people don't consider before they redelegate, like what the person that they're redelegating from, or the company, or the validator that they're redelegating from actually is providing for the ecosystem, whether or not they're giving away a free Nifty or whatever, or a token. Are they actually supporting the ecosystem that is, controlling all of this? What are they doing to help it? And, maybe consider, are you going to a validator that's providing any value whatsoever to the network, or are they just giving something away or helping you compound your rewards? So, I just think people need to sort of start considering more things than just jumping around from airdrop to airdrop. And a lot of them, are not really valuable. So,
but I guess the flip
Just
side of
my
that
thoughts.
question is, well, what are good ways you can market yourself as a validator that don't involve those kinds of strategies? Like, let's take a step back and say, you want to enter a validator set with potentially a lower self stake. How do you then market yourself? Like, what would be a more acceptable way, in your opinion, to market?
Yeah, and it's hard to capture the attention of people, especially when you're starting out. And it takes a long time to build a social following around your validator. And it's tough when you start losing them to, just other things, to projects that aren't providing any value to the networks. So you lose them in the hope that they'll come back, but you kind of just consider them gone when they're gone, don't you? But yeah, man. But hopefully, as everything develops and goes on, people start to make more considerations and try to consider where they're going to. I know back when Juno launched, lots of people came into the chats and they're like, "Who should we delegate to?"
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the admins and stuff in there were saying, things along the lines of delegate to people who do relaying, or delegate to people who provide RPCs or are involved with development because they're actively trying to help the chain, or tooling, or this and that, and which was good to see. But now I don't see the question as much anymore. I just it's all based around Twitter and where the hype is, or
RPC and relayers, I think, is a big one. Like, as somebody who is a scumbag and doesn't run RPCs or relayers, because
geez. What a leech.
I mean, I probably should be starting to run RPCs, really, but it's just one of those, like, how many hours do I have in the day things. So sorry, not sorry, I guess. But it is definitely a thing where I kind of look, when I'm looking to delegate, funds that I have somewhere, where I'm like, who's running RPCs? Because that seems to me like it's a place where you can quite easily get into like a tragedy of the commons, especially when you have like things like smart contract chains where I mean, the thing that people have been talking about recently is like the usage of, I think Fortis is like really, really RPC hungry, and it kind of hammers the RPC. And obviously that's been like a really popular airdrop recently. So, you know, there's situations like that where, you know, there are people running RPC nodes who aren't seeing maybe a return proportional to the amount of effort they're putting into run those RPCs. But then I don't run them myself, so I guess I can't speak to like exactly how complex and how much extra maintenance running those is on top of running a validator. I think maybe Usurper would have some thoughts on that.
I don't know if go ahead, Dylan.
Okay, I was going to add really quick that one thing that's pretty interesting about this conversation is that I've talked to quite a few people who've done chain analysis on this, and being a relayer, being an RPC provider, it basically gives you 0 new delegations, basically nothing. The only way you get delegations by doing it is by speaking to the teams directly, and that can be quite effective. Certainly, like in Secret's case, it is. In Juno's case, it is. But all in all, like running those services is very thankless. And so, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that one, I absolutely agree that those people deserve the support, but unfortunately, two, they don't then get that support. So like Osmosis, they put up a article like last week or 2 weeks ago, the support team did, about relayers and what kind of support you can provide them. And there was basically no delegation change that happened, even though they spent all this time getting this data together and talking about it. And it's just an unfortunate reality of the ecosystem.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Giuseppe.
No, I was going to say, I think all that's accurate. I think it's difficult for anybody walking into this to have a good understanding of how to be able to pick from a moniker list, right? That's out there, and it's not really published, or there's no icons on MinScan that shows who's doing relaying, right? Nobody knows what relaying is and what the role of IBC is. So I agree that that's really more of a dev kind of project ownership delegation type structure that's going to happen. I also don't think projects are hurting for IBC relayers. Like, it seems like there's a tremendous number of relayers that are out there, and sometimes there's too many in a channel because they have different gas and people are dropping transactions and other types of things. So it's not that it's a necessarily 100% an underserved market right now.
I would like to stop you there really quick. So that is true for a very short time. So it's very frequent for a bunch of people to jump into relaying, to set it up, to put, let's say, 10 Juno into it. Yeah. And then once it runs out of that initial seed, they bounce and never come back. And so you have a list of, let's say, 20 relayers or addresses on MinScan seeing these people relay. They really only did it for a week or so, and then it goes away.
Right.
And then you generally have like 3 or 4 relayers that are actually reliably maintaining those channels and making sure that it's healthy
over a really long period, right? Like, because I mean, all this stuff, we're even from a validation perspective, or relay or anything else, we're doing it for years and years to come. And so getting into these chains or getting into these types of situations, it's not something you just want to walk away from, right? And
exactly
so
right. Yeah. And the vast majority walk away from it about a week after it's set up, which is just
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess like the long-term relayers, though, from what I've seen, well, in Juno anyway, I'm not sure about other networks, but I know that Juno supports their long-term relayers with the Core One wallet. They do, like, I'm not sure if it's like a fortnightly or monthly distribution to help cover those fees and stuff. So that's good to see, and I really can't wait for like relaying to be more effective in terms of the costs and how they're handled in the module. I would like to see, those costs being covered per transaction as part of that module. So presumably people are working on that. You might have more of an idea, Schultz. You're a relayer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Omniflix here. They are, as far as I'm aware, the first network to use the fee grant module, which allows for them to actually pay the fee for all relaying transactions for the relayers.
That's awesome.
That doesn't cover everything because all the time investment and server investment, but the fact that they're even putting that foot forward, I think is absolutely fantastic. It's a really great move forward for the ecosystem.
Shout out, by the way, to Omniflix. Like, they've been not rushing their launch to catch on the hype, and they've been coming up with a lot of good ideas and talking with their communities a lot, and validators and relayers and making sure that they try and do things as right as they can with the tools they've got at the moment, and developing more tools and stuff as well. So shout out to them, Sisler and the team, doing a great job.
And great communication from that group, right? And like they're very clear and like really reach out to validators, like you said. No, it's good stuff. The other thing we should call out is we should call out BlockPain's 9 types of validators blog post, which we'll link in the description, maybe here on this down below, as well as in the podcast, because it really, I think, did a great job of kind of bucketing up some different types of validators within the ecosystem and kind of how validators, or at least maybe some independents that are on this podcast, review those and kind of think about how they kind of bucket up different types of validators that are out there. But I do agree that like there's a real discoverability and like marketing and just value challenge within this. And somebody new coming into this and trying to just figure out what staking is, or starting to think about LPs and those types of things. It's just one more thing, right? And I look at this large list, and so what am I going to do? Well, they're ranked 1 through 100, so I'm going to take the top. And that really, not only does that not really relate to value to adding to the chain, it really does not necessarily relate to security. It doesn't relate to uptime. It doesn't necessarily relate to involvement. It doesn't relate to a whole bunch of different things. And that statement is very broad. Like it's very different across different types of chains. But I think this challenge is a really large one for trying to bring new people in and trying to also build diversification in the validator set.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm guessing most of us read Elsehow's blog post on how you actually measure decentralization of a chain in terms of voting power in the validator set and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't remember what was it, HFFI, what the metric that they use to sort of evaluate it rather than using the Gini coefficient.
Right.
And that was a really interesting blog post, and I think it highlights a lot of the problems, like a kind of maybe more academic level, the problems that Usurper was starting to get onto there, which is like, how decentralized actually are we in practice? And this is something that we saw in Juno when the validator set was pushed up to 125, because we kind of hit this brick wall of performance was degraded, and performance degraded to the point that we had to do a follow-up proposal to change the blocks per year to actually bring inflation back in line with what it should be. But at the same time, it is when you look at it, you want to intuit that 125 validators is more decentralized than 100. But the reality is that if all of the delegations are still going to the top 10, it actually doesn't move the needle on the Gini coefficient or any kind of traditional measures of inequality, right? So you use measures of inequality to measure voting power, because voting power as a kind of rubric for decentralization, I guess, is it is actually academically viewable as a problem of inequality and resource allocation, right? So that's why for people that are curious as to why I've suddenly dropped into sort of inequality economics, that's why it's the set of tools that are generally used to talk about voting power at the moment. And so I guess it's that question of like, how are we measuring decentralization, and what is decentralization anyway, and what is the metric of decentralization that's most useful to us? Because there's one thing that I've been very interested in for a number of years, and I've actually sort of distributed systems. My background is distributed data systems to some extent. Mm-hmm. And I was recently talking to Martin Kleppmann, who wrote the book Designing Data Intensive Applications, which is an amazing textbook if you ever want to learn about all sorts of high throughput data systems. And his thesis is much more around the future of the systems that we're trying to build in the blockchain space are actually going to be distributed systems, but not decentralized ones, not ones that involve a blockchain. Because local first computing, i.e., devices interconnecting with one another, mesh nets and all that kind of stuff, and building from the bottom up, is a more decentralized way of building a resilient network, according to some. I mean, I'm grossly simplifying a very large body of academic work and some really cool practical applications that they've built. But I'm going to stop talking now. But yeah, what is decentralization? I think is a really interesting question, like that I think we have to grapple with as validators. And
Well, the
I'm
other
not sure how I
question
feel about it.
is decentralization necessary in certain applications? So, for example, Juno, the intention of that chain is to be decentralized, right? But then you take, something that's got some regulatory issues, like, for example, Sage, which is coming up. They, they may need to operate in a different way so that they can manage risks in it. So it might not be intentionalized to be, fully decentralized, and that's not the only example. What's the business model? Does it need to be decentralized? What value is there in decentralization for some projects? But obviously, other projects want to be. That's what they want to be. They want to be decentralized. So we're POS. We're not like in the whole point of proof of work Bitcoin is that it's completely decentralized. But proof of stake, specific, application based modules. Is there advantage in being decentralized? Do you need?
I guess
to be?
it's kind of setting up an oligarchy, isn't it? Rather than, and this is kind of back to like a lot of the things that were thrown at the validators during Prop 16 is that you effectively do see the functioning of the validator set as a potential oligarchy in a situation like that, like in a very where voting power really does matter and there is a contentious issue on the table. And I think that presents its own problems. I mean, because we talked about this a few weeks ago now when I was said, well, yeah, what would happen if we made the entire validator set fungible? Like, essentially, meaning that validators entry and exit to the set is very easy. So validators that are in the set have less security. Validators outside the set have more likelihood of entering the set and earning rewards, even if that position is like not easy to guarantee, because maybe it's either done algorithmically or it's done according to some metric that means people are kicked and cycled on a regular basis. Would that be desirable? And obviously, from a business perspective, the answer is no, right?
I remember this conversation, and I was thinking, fucking.
I think you did actually call me a fucking idiot, like directly to my face.
Depends on the channel.
You were saying some crazy shit that day. It was, very, it was more academic than I had an appetite for at 4 o'clock in the morning.
But then it does go back to that question of like, well, if you want a decentralized network, you have to do things like, cycle the validator set. You have to make the validator set fungible, or you have to use light clients or some other method for bringing online processing power that isn't like in a distributed among a small set of machines, right?
Right.
So then it kind of follows that we've decided that decentralization is actually not as important as a stable set of computing power, which then brings us on to the question as well, okay, at the moment we have this tragedy of the commons situation where some people are, like in BlockPane's blog post, which is really great and everybody should go check it out. Second shout out to BlockPane, who also builds really cool tools for validators that mean we can look at pretty diagrams of where all the packets are going and stuff. But like you go, okay, well, if there's these different tiers of validators, like a validator tier list, obviously we're like usurpers like S+ tier, and Schultz like H+ tier for handsome. And then there's like some kind of like all the way down.
Wholesome.
There's like some C-
all the way to the
tier,
vampire.
like, there's like some C- tier. When you first boot up Metal Gear 5 and you're abducting guys for your research base, and then like they just don't even move the needle. Somewhere in that tier, that's like me and our validator operation, right? So, but then the question is like, if there are all these tiers of validators, can you do things with your chain and the way you build it to actually incentivize that behavior? Because certainly there are projects in proof of work that have come up with novel incentive structures to do things other than just incentivize people in the network to shuffle transactions around. Like Arweave is a really great example of this. And they talk a lot about the incentive structures they use to store data, right? Because that's their thing. And so you go, well, okay, should our validator sets be incentivized to run RPCs and run relayers and this kind of stuff? Should that stuff be mandatory?
It sounds
is a
like we're almost circling around Null's favorite topic, which is foundation delegation. I don't know. It seems like we're kind of in that range. Incentivizing based on inequality. It's kind of, aren't we almost there? That's episode 4, right?
Yeah, maybe another episode.
Episode 4, just a 40-minute rant from Null about foundation
delegation. So would 100. So going back to, I think what Schultze brought into this topic was with the idea around the Cosmos Prop 66, which is they want to be able to bring it from, I think it's 150 to 175. Is that right, or is it 125?
Yeah, that's correct.
150 to 175. Yep.
So moving from 150 to 175 validators, does it make any difference? Is it at all important?
So the answer to that is yes, but if you forgive me for like looping back around what Frey was saying back to Craft. He was talking about how different validators have like different worths. And I'm going to take a moment here to talk about like the Craft testnet. So one of the reasons why your Genesis set is really important is basically for this reason. For your Genesis, you want a handful of strong validators that have experience getting a network going, basically so you can create that initial stability. You can have 15, 20, 25, it's fine. And then once you have that initial set, then you kind of expand past that to the less experienced folks. And this kind of creates an awkward incentive system. So you'll notice that on almost all Cosmos chains, you'll have Cosmos Station on there because they have experience. But now because they're on all Cosmos chains, they have the lion's share of delegations. And so you enter this strange kind of paradox where you need some experience to get your chain going, but because you are using that experience to get your chain going, you are further lifting up the already experienced people and letting those that aren't as experienced kind of fall through the cracks. There's something of a heuristic where if you're joining a network, let's say a week after Genesis, there's a strong chance you will just never be profitable as a validator.
Sure.
I have 25 networks or so that we're validating for, and fewer than half are even paying for their server costs. Mm-hmm. And that's quite common. And so it's an unfortunate state that I don't quite know where the point I was eventually wrapping around to with this was, but something I wanted to point out.
But the other piece of it, which we saw in Osmosis, was like I got pushed out of Osmosis twice, or Rhino got pushed out of Osmosis twice. Once back in fall of last year when really it started to pick up and the price started to be able to shoot up, and so you had a lot more money coming in. And then again, after they expanded from 100 to 125, we were in for maybe 45 days, 60 days or something like that. And then what you saw outside money coming in from other chains, and you have validators that were not in Cosmos at all that came in from Polkadot or came in from somewhere else that brought up proof of stake type structures in there. So you had really large players coming in that I agree. Like the idea of being able to bring in new validators or groups, and we're all independent, right? So the idea of bringing more independence in is obviously important to all of us, right? Like that's what I think we collectively want. I think expanding the set does do that. I don't know if it does that for a long time. Like we had that with Messi on Juno. We've had that with other great validators who know and have good operations, but eventually get pushed out because we always talk about the floor is lava when you join after Genesis, and when the floor is lava, and meaning what we mean by that is that as this set expands and as the minimum keeps rising, it's very difficult to be a small independent trying to be able to build that up when you're at the bottom of the set, because nobody wants to delegate to the last 10%, right? And they just feel that as being a risk. And so therefore that becomes a metric of staying in, which is associated to how much cash you bring into it, or the validator or the group that's behind that validator brings into it. And frankly, as an independent validator, those numbers are usually pretty small compared to somebody coming in from an institution or something else like that. So I think when something like Cosmos, like when the Atom wants to expand that out to 175, I look at that and say, well, that's a good opportunity for Rhino. Like I would love to be able to be a validator in Atom. I also look at it to say, who is that opening a door for? And is that us, or is it me? I should say, I don't guess. Or is that institutions that are coming in and something else similar to that?
Well, I'll share it this way. With this set expand, we're looking at this as an opportunity. I mean, we're definitely not in set. We can't afford what the floor was. Last I saw was something well over $1 million. And we're on 14 chains right now, so we're not doing too bad. But like Schultz said, not all of them pay for themselves. There are some that just simply don't even cover server costs, let alone labor and all that. So I think expanding the set is good in that, yes, we can bring in other validators and all that, but there is that risk of absolutely just someone sees a chance and, all right, we've got $1 million to burn. Screw it. Let's get in the Atom set. And now we're earning all these extra tokens that are almost always airdrop too. Boom, done.
Right.
And I kind of want to tie this to what you guys were talking about before with decentralization and kind of how I pick a validator. There's something that I've been thinking about for the past few weeks, and it was a GitHub, basically repo that Bro and Bro Validator shared. It's like December 1st of 2021, so last year, months ago, and it's called the Bro Rating. And so basically they took validators, and I believe it was the Osmosis set, and they ranked them based on a variety of factors. So it was like greed, reputation, community involvement, contributions, whether it was code or adding nodes, relayers, different things they were doing, and then governance, that's a big one, of course, and all of these factors adding up. And you were, this list they initially made was showing a lot of validators that may have been a lot lower on the list actually showing up a lot higher on this rating system because they're actively trying harder.
Sure.
They're not at the top stacked with all this money and they don't have to care. We see that in a lot of these chains where the top 10, they may not be voting anywhere near as much as everybody below them because they're solidified in their position. They're cool. They're chilling. They've got a nice team delegation. And with that, they just continue to get the lion's share of delegations coming in. So, I've been thinking about how could we take this sort of rating system, build it into a simple UI that the community could go to, and it's updated on either a daily, weekly, whatever basis, and people can look at it and go, okay, I want to pick a new validator. Who should I delegate to and why? And just based on various factors, and these are things that we could all discuss and choose what metrics matter and not. Go from there.
I think that's a bit of the holy grail. I think that everybody who's on this would want that. The big challenge of that is how do you bring that into MintScan? How do you bring that into Kepler? How do you bring that into the cow?
Noel's got a question.
Is it a question?
I have some ideas on that, and
Okay.
I've talked about these with a few people in the past, but no matter what solution you go with, it's subjective to the person who's doing the assessment and the reporting,
Sure.
right? So an idea I had was that, teams who are essentially, developers of the blockchain or trusted in the community or whoever, some part of the system would sort of recognize the contributions from people and assign them a revocable NFT, non-transferable revocable NFT for that attribute. For example, if you're a relayer and you're on the network every month rating, you get a relayer NFT, and then MintScan picks up that NFT, and if you hover over the icon on a moniker for that validator, you get their NFTs which show their contributions to the network. I have an idea that how do I monetize it?
Well, so
Nice.
I think Noel's heard my idea on this, which is that I hear that there's a positive correlation between voting and a validator's involvement in network, and I go, well, I can write a smart contract to look that up, right? Easy peasy. And a lot of those things can be sort of sorted out in code. Now, with the caveat that there are some chains that's not true of, like Stargaze, because of how their claim worked, they had to just put up loads of spurious governance proposals, and I didn't vote on them, and neither did Needlecast, because it was just like I'm not just clicking yes to click yes on claim your airdrop number 7 governance prop, which has no meaning. So there are obviously some chains that would work on, some chains it wouldn't work on. But I'm obviously quite bullish on the idea that, you know, the question of how do you know whether somebody's running relayers? Well, you can just say that there's actually, for example, there are tiers of validators. So why does there have to be only one validator set? You know, from the point of view of consensus, that there is only one validator set. For the point of view of actually adding metadata to a validator set that's shown to a user or that's stored on chain, there's no reason why there can't be more than one validator set, or indeed that you can't actually change the voting power or the, you know, essentially like the rewards that a validator is getting based on criteria that you define economically as a chain, and encode into
cool.
that, like be it RPCs.
So like you get a multiplier if you like, you know, provide this service, and it can be read by this smart contract, and you get a multiplier.
Yeah, I mean, you've changed your tone because the last time I talked about this with you, you said I was mad. So
no, well, I think you were mad at the time, but you were talking about other shit as well. But sorry, I didn't think I gleaned that when you were talking about this to me before. So just actually grasp me out here, because I was saying if you like, so say you provide a service, right? You can pick that up in code, and then, you know, if you're providing that in association with your validator wallet, or if you declare that somehow in your validator wallet transactions, then if it picks up that service, then that is going to give you a multiplier for your rewards. Is that what you're saying?
So I'm saying you can write this. I'm saying it doesn't exist in any Cosmos chain at the moment, and it would no longer be proof of stake. So you would have to write custom code for your chain to essentially take out of band information and essentially decide what the current state, like who is currently a validator, is not just a function of are they participating in consensus, it's also is X other economic criteria fulfilled. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot from going back and looking at proof of work chains that are doing things using extra infrastructure, be it like file storage or be it like economic incentives around document access, like Arweave,
right?
Where they essentially are trying to get people into a. So if you want somebody to run 3 additional services as well as a validator, right? The equilibrium where those services will be up is to not tell the validator which one you're going to look up, but only look up one of them, because you don't need to look up all 3, right? Every block or every X blocks. You just look up one and see, is it live? And you never tell them which one it's going to be. And if it's not live, boom, you're out of the set for that block or that set of blocks or that tranche, you know?
Oh yeah, no, that's where I was starting to think you were crazy. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and this was the bit
actually,
that Null threw some mean
words
my way.
In that same question, in that same conversation, you were talking about randomly assigning a voter in your set of delegators.
Yeah, I mean, I think there would be some interesting stuff around validators not necessarily wielding their own voting power. Though this is an area where obviously the political scientists and theorists have done a lot more research than I have. But the idea that you're sort of, you know, a voting block exists, right? And the validator is currently the executor of that vote.
Yeah.
But why? Why is it not the case that vote is not given is just round robin to a key that is delegating to that validator, and they decide how that voting block votes? And if people don't like it, they can vote against that person's vote or that wallet's vote. And the validator themselves, if they have a large self-stake, can just vote themselves. It's not like anybody's telling you. It's just putting, again, it's like, you know, is it necessarily right that validators always have this privileged position to exercise that vote? Maybe it is, and we have seen Prop 16 play. I mean, so we had this conversation a few weeks ago before Prop 16 was even a glint in Wolf Contract's eye. So, you know, I think we've seen with Prop 16 that actually having a block of voting power with validators who have different incentives to sort of ordinary users might actually be a valuable thing. But I think it's also worth questioning whether or not, you know, you could delegate votes to one voter to one delegator of the validator, and then they execute the vote for GovProp. I think that's quite an interesting idea. I don't know if it would pan out well, but
it could be
is
something
interesting.
It could be something that you guys could do today with DAO, at least in Juno. Like you could, from even King Nodes, your DAO, you guys could put proposals up and be able to take an initial vote on how King Nodes will vote, for example, or something similar to that. You guys could do that. And as WASM kind of moves across chains, it might be something to be able to think about in terms of saying, I want to, and maybe just the yes, no, vote, no with veto is not enough, but as we get into more complex voting structures and things like that, I think the idea that a validator, meaning me, this brain, making a decision for, I've been a little bit vocal about this, but making a decision for everybody who doesn't vote is a little bit not the perfect situation. So finding another way to be able to bring that forward or make it a little bit more community driven, not necessarily.
I mean, there's no reason you couldn't effectively model a validator's actual vote, like the block vote, as essentially a DAO's governance prop, and then say,
Right.
Well, you could do that with
ranked
auths.
choice voting.
Yeah,
You could do that
Yeah,
with
exactly.
auths and assign it to that DAO address.
Cal makes a good point around the voting period and things like that. Yeah, there's a timing issue here too, right? Because you want to be able to give your delegates who might hold a specific token the ability to be able to guide that vote and those types of things. But honestly, that DAO situation is more maybe it's more of a patch of that. No, it's more of a patch of that issue versus kind of solving that problem. But I think it's going in the right direction. The other thing, just back to the idea around expanding the set and those types of things. I think one thing that if there's there's a lot of people I think are interested in the Cosmos that are listening to this that might not be running validators and things like that. The other thing that thinks about from a validator perspective is once you get in there and once you kind of make a decision you want to be able to get into a set, if that set expands, is the long-term viability of that. And there's kind of a issue around, I want to be able to get in there, but I also want to make sure that I can be able to be a validator for my delegates long-term. And so I was just actually going back into the Osmosis. If everybody goes to MintScan and go to Osmosis validators and look at inactive and look at the great validators that are inactive on Osmosis after it went from 100 to 125, right? You have CatBoss, you have Polkachu, right? Hugely valuable validator in the Cosmos ecosystem. You have Rhino. Hey, you have there's like a huge list of really valuable organizations that have, and Whispers in there as well, right, Ghost, and Mercury, others that have been really good, strong proponents and very vocal in the ecosystem that just cannot stay in set, and that's not just bad for them, like as a business, but when we're delegating across, or when you have delegates you're trying to build an ecosystem around and like be positive in ecosystem across multiple different chains, you don't want to let those delegates you don't want to let them down, right? They might redelegate to you, and the next thing you know, you're out of the set and they're stuck for the period, maybe 14 or 28 days. That is not a good feeling for a validator. Like you want your delegates to earn. That's number one, right? You want them to earn. And to be in a position where you're getting pushed out of the set and then you're putting delegates in bad positions is really emotionally draining. And so I think might see, the set goes from 125 to 150 and you say, why aren't you jumping in that? Well, the reason is because I'm also, you want to do the right thing for the, the customers that you have.
It's risky. Absolutely. People could delegate to you and then 2 days later, all of a sudden someone jumps in that has a lot more capital backing them and then you're gone and they just redelegated. Right. So they're stuck to you. Absolutely. We were at the edge of the Juno set. It was 125. We were 121 for like a week, and I was on Twitter just going like, guys, like help. Anything, like 10. I don't care. But we were losing delegations to like Putmos, and we were losing delegations to like, all these airdrop vote stuff. And I'm not trying to name drop or bash. It's just it was a challenge. We caught a lucky whale, and we really appreciated it. And now we're like in the mid 50s. Restake helped a lot, but yeah, it's definitely challenging when you're that low because people are taking a way bigger risk on you, Right. So
that's right.
I remember the word sledge.
Oh, sledge. Yeah.
That was the word. I told you it was like shovel. That was what I was trying to remember earlier. I was.
Wow, that was like a 15-minute throwback.
59 minutes
45 minutes ago, I said that I was sledging somebody, but I
not to discount anything the Whisper Node was saying then, but yes, Trey has remembered
just
the word
sledge.
Those neurons are firing.
I don't know. I think it's because you said you didn't want to put shade on validators that were doing airdrops, and it kind of dropped me all the way back. If you like, it airdropped me all the way back to our previous conversation. I remember.
Right. Yeah.
I remember.
And no, the intention was not to do that. It was simply just that. Yeah. And when you're that low in the set, it's very easy to lose, delegates that you had before then to those new ones. So,
Yep.
Yeah,
it's a bad spot to
I'm,
be in for everybody.
I'm conscious a little bit of time. I think we've kind of ended up having a pretty comprehensive discussion actually on validators, what decentralization is in practice, and how you can maybe pick a validator. And there's so much in here. I think that almost any of these topics we could probably do an entire episode on. So if there's any bits that we've been talking about here that are particularly interesting, then do shout them out, or get in touch with us on Twitter and let us know, and we can maybe expand on some things in future episodes. Certainly, as I'm sure I had to shut myself up because I was getting too excited about talking about economic incentives. There's a whole bunch of stuff around extensions to proof of stake, which may or may not actually be working on some stuff for. Cough, cough, cough. So but there's also just, I think, a lot that we can do within what we're currently all validating on, which are proof of stake chains, right? And how we, I think it was Usurper who said, we have a stake as independent validator teams, that obviously we're biased towards bringing in more independent validators because it is inherently more stable for all of us to work together when we are all small, similar styled organizations and businesses. Whereas if somebody comes in with a huge bag from Solana and just buys their way into a set and knocks one of us out, it's like, oh, okay, that kind of sucks. But in the interest of time, should we move on to our final question, our final regular question we do every week?
Quickly.
Let's do it quickly.
So,
okay.
What is our target? Is it an hour?
It's about an hour, I think. We always go a little bit over by the time we do final question, but I think let's try and keep. I think if we try and keep them to an hour, and if people think the subject wasn't dealt enough time, they can always have a go at us in the comments, and we can come back around to it.
Flame us in the comments so we get more impressions.
Sledge us in the comments.
Yeah, sledge us in the comments for impressions' sake. So, all right then. Well, let's go around the room then with our end of show question, which is, what are you most excited about this week? Maybe we'll go in order this time. So, the Frey, what are you excited about, man?
I don't want to mention Prop 16 again, but I'm going to mention it. I am excited about I think Prop 17 is currently passing, which is the software upgrade, the nerdy software upgrade that allows us to do governance contracts. Yay. I'm kind of excited to get Unity audited, get it put together and get it put in front of the community. I genuinely think this is next level tech. This is next level opportunity to show the maturity of Juno's technology and its community. And I don't think there's really anything in the Cosmos ecosystem right now that is as exciting as the idea of resolving this governance situation with a smart contract. So that's what I'm excited about.
Awesome. Whisper?
100%. I'm going to go on the meme side and say Auth for Chihuahua. Running a restake fork and just all that, I'm excited for 1,200-1,300% APY. So, huge fan of Tom's. Big shout out to EcoStake for building restake. I know a lot of us use it. A lot of people watching are definitely probably using it. And I'm just excited for Chihuahua to finally enable that. So it's got to be mine.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Always a shout out to Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Usurper?
I think this week, I'm not going to say Evmos again because that's my answer the last 2 weeks. So even though I see progress, things are happening. I'm excited for that coming back. I do think that this week we're going to see a turnaround on Cosmos token prices. Can we talk about prices? We've had a bit of a slide.
You got to take that to the Game and Nodes price chat.
We had a bit of a slide for a few weeks. And I guess we're just paying off the debts that Cosmos had while the rest of the crypto markets slid, and now we're paying for that a little bit. back to Chihuahua and with the great work that's being done at Stargaze and others, I'm hoping to see that we see some of the value that comes out of that kind of move forward here. I would agree also on kind of Prop 17 and moving forward with the upgrade. We talked about this last week and just the diversity in terms of viewpoints and those types of things. But I think if we can move together towards a solution and move past this, that's the best possible thing. And so it seems like that's finally going in the right direction as well. So I'm excited to see what happens in the next week before the time we talk next Wednesday, just in terms of making more progress associated with that.
Yeah, awesome. Schultzy?
Yeah. So again, my the thing I'm most excited about is more than just a week, but Secret Network is something of like my home network, and lately they've been getting a lot of heat after the Shade airdrop. The network basically slowed to a halt. But they have a lot of really cool things going on that are happening soon. They have query nodes that should make the network speed up. And they also have a lot of really cool things going on for governance that I think that other Cosmos chains can take note of. And so I'm really excited for those improvements that are coming basically just around the corner for Secret, because Secret is my home.
Could query nodes, we could take what's being done there and apply it to the rest of these chains?
I don't think so. The query node optimizations are really based around how SGX handles it, potentially, but I err towards not by my discussions with the core developers.
That'd be pretty cool for RPC nodes and API nodes and things like that around here versus actually keeping a whole copy of the chain and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's something ridiculous like a 5,000% performance increase.
Yeah, I saw that.
With these. Yeah.
That's cool.
So I think that's really exciting for me personally.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What am I excited about? Man, Prop 17. It was pretty cool that it wasn't the actual prop it was supposed to be, and that it's an upgrade. I like that, but I'm excited for that upgrade. This smart contract governance, I think, is going to be like a really big thing now that someone's pulled the trigger and done it. I'm excited to see what developers do with it as well in expanding it and its capabilities. And yeah, man, I think it's really exciting. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to episode 2.5. A lot of good discussion about that prop.
Yep.
And what it brings to Juno. So yeah, man, I'm excited about that. So I guess that kind of brings us to the end, unless anyone else has something they wanted to discuss. The Frey, do you want to do your wrap up, man, with your like and subscribe?
Do you know what? I actually just realized I didn't do a like and subscribe at the end of 2.5. I think we just said thank you for listening to an hour of nerd chat, and then hit the button. So with that in mind, thank you everybody for listening. As always, it's been really, really cool. I mean, this was kind of a dumb idea that we all kind of came up with. I think Null in particular pushed us off the cliff to we should do a podcast, and the fact that people listen to it is still surprising and awesome. So thank you for bearing with us. For those of you that haven't yet subscribed and liked, you should do that via the buttons down below. Hit the bell icon if you're on YouTube as well, so you get notifications of upcoming streams. And if you're on other podcast players, leave us a comment or a rating depending on which one you're on, because that will help us get a little bit more visibility. And also it means that your Surfer's hard work in distributing it to all those other platforms is not wasted. Though if you're listening, of course it's not wasted anyway. So
it's on Spotify, right?
It's everywhere.
Oh yeah, no, definitely get on Spotify. I got it. Let's do it.
So I did want to mention actually just a couple of other things on top of that, Frey. I think we should just remind everyone at the end here that we are independent validators. If you do like what we're doing and maybe research our nodes, and if you like how we look, maybe give us a consider delegating to us as well, which we probably should mention. Yeah, and other than that, if you have suggestions that you want us to talk about on the show, or you think we can improve in anything, whether you want us all to be in cars while we're doing the podcast, just let us know. But other than that, thanks a lot for